Hello and welcome to another week of Talk of the Town. It's my pleasure to introduce the Port Adelaide Premiership champion, Warren Tredrea. G'day.
G'day, Seb. G'day, Sam. Let's do it again.
Sam McClure is the chief football reporter of the Nine Network. Hello to you.
Hello, Seb. I like how you always keep the best till last.
Let's talk.
That's too early. Too early.
And at the moment, the president of the Western Bulldogs has put further pay cuts for AFL players on the agenda. He says 20% is basically a starting point and players are going to have to give up more. There's also some talk around what the salary cap looks like going forward. $14.5 million is where we sit at the moment. Sam, I'll start with you. Do you have any idea how much the salary cap will come down? And are players going to have to accept 20% plus pay cuts?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, Seb. I mean, I guess the short answer is we don't know, and we won't know until probably the end of the year once we realise how much the game has actually suffered, and some of that will come down to what the new TV rights deal is going to look like. But also if we can get, any fans back into the game. But yeah, I've got to be honest, and I'm not sure how you and Tredders felt about Peter Gordon's comments. I wasn't all that surprised. It was great, strong comments, but I thought that 20% was always going to be a starting point. Now, it sounds like the soft cap or the footy hard cap, whatever it's going to be somewhere in the 6 millions. And there's always been a feeling that that would be around about 50% of what the overall TPP is going to be. So, we're talking 14.5, maybe down to 12. It could come down more. But, there's been talk that the $600 million loan that the AFL got from the banks wasn't going to be enough to save the game long term. Clearly, the players are going to have to take a cut of that, Tredders. And I guess we balance that out with, the comments of the great Lee Matthews, who says that players should be the last faction of the game to take a pay cut, given that they are the most important, which is hard to argue with in principle.
Yeah, I agree exactly what you've said in every instance right there. The biggest challenge for me, the former player, put the players cap on, 20%. I'd be happy with that right now. It's going to be a hell of a lot worse than 20%. You've got to remember only about 3 or 4 years ago, the start of this new TV deal, players got kicked by 20%. It went up instantly overnight. Players were like, whoa, where did that come from? Some didn't get the bonuses. The clubs kept some of it and managed TPP quite well. But my instance right now suggests that it's going to be even bigger.
Sam, the game is largely floated on a broadcast rights deal, which until the end of 2022 was on paper supposed to bring into the game around about $420 million a season. Keeping in mind this year, Foxtel, Channel 7, they're not going to be getting 22 home and away rounds and finals. It's going to be 17 in finals. Do you have any idea or visibility on just how much of a reduced broadcast fee the league is going to receive?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and the AFL and the broadcasters like to keep that really close to their chest. You can understand why. The talk in the industry was, again, that magical figure of 20% was going to be alleviated. But then there was talk as recent as a couple of weeks ago that, the AFL was going to ask for the full 100% of it. And then when we get to the year, let's work out how much the broadcasters have potentially lost. Keep in mind that there's so many things going on. There's going to be more eyeballs for Channel 7 and for Fox than there ever has been, although they would argue that the advertising space that they have is not as valuable because people aren't spending as much money on the things that they're advertising. So it really depends on who you talk to in that space. But yeah, you're right. It's in that $420 to $450 million a year. Telstra also chip in about $50 million of that per year. And there's been talk, Caroline Wilson's been reporting for several months now that there was going to be a 2-year extension for Fox and Channel 7 at potentially a reduced rate, just to show some loyalty to the broadcasters. That hasn't happened yet. You just have to wonder whether, Channel 9 and the ongoing feud they're having with the NRL, if that's going to play into the AFL's hands. Are Amazon going to come knocking on the door? Those documentaries are continuing. So, yeah, what a fascinating space it is.
Tredders, crowds not showing up. I mean, you've been around footy clubs to know how they work. How big a deal is it that the game and particularly the clubs are missing out on ticket receipts?
Well, this is huge. As much as the broadcast rights for the clubs are important, they're more important for the AFL because that funds the whole program. But if you look at the AFL's clubs in particular, they make most of their money. Geelong's got on the record, 10 home games means 10 million not there. And I was interested to see, because I saw the Bundesliga during the week had a digital banner to cover up the outside, the fact there is no fans. I think that needs to be thought. We need to think, a great chance to think outside the square. But from a simple point of view of a club, $100 a ticket, 60,000 members. You do the maths, it's serious money. And the challenge is, if it's 6 to 10 million, up to 15 million in gate takings that they're not going to get, don't worry about the bigger picture. Club land is going to be really interesting because the distributions, if the rights are down, aren't going to come heavily from the AFL. They're going to be left to their own accord. And as you say, new sponsors that sign on, whether it's, Emirates, the airline with Collingwood, or whether it's Ford with Geelong, or it's MG with Port Adelaide, or it's Toyota with Adelaide, are they going to want to pay the same premium they've always paid? No, they're not. Fans also too. The different thing is no fans, no lifeblood. Clubs are built off fans. They come, they buy the pies, the pasties, they pay the exorbitant prices for the beers at quarter and three-quarter time and half time. They pay parking, they buy the jumpers, all the different sorts of merchandise. They go to the club functions. Where's all that money coming from? That is instantly gone. And as we talk about whether the clubs keep the membership money, by all reports here in South Australia, the club's doing quite well because the people are saying, well, if I can afford it, I'll donate it to my club. But the situation here is the economy of football is built off fans. Fans drive, as we say, the merchandise and all the bits and pieces, also drive the TV revenue. Because if the game's not supported, we don't have anything. So unfortunately, that's going to be a massive hit for both the clubs and the AFL. And to get through, it's going to have to be the best case scenario. And that's where we build for years to go. And that's where the players, we get back to what we said before, they need to understand if it's 50% this year, well, we either have a job or we don't. It's quite simple.
And on that, Seb and Treddies, you can understand why clubs like St Kilda, and they were one of three clubs, Gold Coast and Freo being the other ones, are angry that they don't have any of the first 5 games on free-to-air, because free-to-air TV is now the new crowd. If you can't have crowds to the game, you want to have as many eyeballs around free-to-air television across the country as possible, because you want to give your sponsors, who are paying millions of dollars, to support your club, the best advertising space you can. The Saints are going to start their first 5 games without their major sponsors being seen on free-to-air TV, and they're not going to want to cough up the same amount, in the following deals if that happens. So, suddenly free-to-air TV is more important than it's ever been.
And we love our sponsors, the companies that support footy. And frankly, there's never been a better time to get a message out there if you can afford it. Free-to-air TV ratings are through the roof, and they will be really strong for sports going forward. Tred, as you mentioned the Cats, and let's talk about their fixturing, because it's logical, but of course it gets written up as a big win for them. They usually have to play a couple of games at the MCG because big drawing clubs are too big to be played at Cardinia Park without crowds. They're going to get all their home games down the highway from Melbourne in Geelong. Is that a big advantage? Is it fair? Is it an issue? What's your thoughts?
I say good on them. They got the rub of the green, and it's a great place. I spent 15 years of my career going down there, and more often not coming back down the highway, jumping on the plane after being belted. Got to remember too, they haven't lost too many games down there. I think Sydney's got a decent record, but other than that, for a long period of time, the team I played in Port Adelaide, Don Cassisi kicked a goal almost on the siren, and that was the only win for a long, long time. We know their history of premierships and success. Even last year, they were the top team before the finals played off, so they don't lose too many at home. But the only thing is, I would say, it is a different geographical space in terms that it is a lot skinnier, a lot longer than most grounds. But in saying that, that comes with familiarity. If they're going to play there more often, that's a small advantage to them. I haven't played as well as the MCG because maybe it is wider. I don't know. I think a lot of this is overcooked something shocking. Yes. And at the moment, as we know, we don't have much footy to play. So a lot of journos, and we're all included in that situation, we're looking for paralysis by analysis. Oh, the Cats, they've got 8 home games. Oh, sorry, no one's actually playing there. But, hey, it's still an advantage. It might be a 2% advantage. But as you prove, good teams and well-executed teams will beat anyone anywhere. And I think that's the case when they come down to Geelong. It'll be hard, but, hey, it's possible.
Hey, Sam, I want to get your reaction to this. We're going to talk about the Hall of Fame in a second, but let's take a quick detour down to Bomberland. And Joe Danaher, always a huge discussion point. Cale Hooker did a press conference yesterday. He was asked how Joe looked, what sort of shape Joe Danaher was in. And here's what Cale Hooker had to say.
Like, we love Joe and we just love to see him back playing his best footy. So it's just about him taking his time and putting his plan together and executing it and getting him right when we can. And the best way we can try and keep him is by playing great footy and showing that we're a great place to be at and that can have success here. Yeah, he looks lean. He looks like he's leaned up a little bit. And yeah, like I said, when you can actually run and get out there, it always makes you feel better. So it was great. It lifted the group seeing him running, and he looked like he was running quite freely. So hopefully it's the start of a good progression for him.
Sammy, what do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just I find these sort of moments funny. And Tredders, I'm sure you'll be able to attest to this. When a star is injured, and particularly someone who's as well loved by his teammates as Joe is, all you want to do is talk positively about them, whatever it is, whatever kind of shape they're looking in, or maybe they're running faster than they ever have. Or I was hoping, if anything, we'd say that Joe's 200 centimetres and has always been lean, might have put on a couple of kilos in the shoulders, or maybe he's been doing some extra squats and the groins are going well. But he's looking leaner, Kale. We don't want him looking leaner. He's already lean.
Well, that's not good, boys, because this time last week he was dead and buried, and if he's lean, that means he's on the way out. He's dying. That's not good.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're having a bit of fun with this, and we know that Kale's just trying to support his teammate. But I'm trying to think, if I'm not sure, Tredders, if any teammates spring to mind who needed to get 2 or 3 kegs leaner in the off season, and that would have been a good thing. So and so's looking leaner. That's great. But with Joe, his physical stature, I don't think has ever been an issue, given that he is, 201 centimetres.
Well, we're the Fat Boy Club back in the day. The boys that blew apart the skin folds used to got sent to the Adelaide Hills and Mount Lofty with a backpack with ever how many kilos you're overweight. So if you're 10 kgs overweight, you're trekking for with the 10 kilo dumbbell in your backpack. So we used to say, he's doing a lot of hard work. He's really doing the extra work. They're doing walking as well as extra sessions to get them back and fit. Well, the reality was they came back fat, undisciplined, and now they have to walk for a living. So sucked in.
Who was the worst one, Tredders? Tips up on him.
I'm not saying anyone. He might be a coach of an AFL club.
Stewie Jew! I knew you'd be the premier.
Don't worry. He and Roger James and Byron Pickett used to laugh. Fat Boy Club. You walk past, they're all smiling. I think they enjoyed it more than anything.
Well, Matthew Lloyd admitted the same thing on radio a couple of weeks, that he was part of the Fat Boy Club. So, Seb, if we've got a guy who kicked 926 goals, and we've got Stewie Jew, the premiership star that almost won a grand final off his own boot the last quarter and a half for the Hawks, I'll take being in the Fat Boys Club any day of the week.
You two are my teammates. If you want to describe me as looking leaner at any stage, I will happily take that sort of suggestion. Tredders, let's
No, you understand. That's why we've stayed quiet.
Wow.
You didn't want me to. I thought you asked me a question. Sorry.
No, it's fine. This is a school of hard knocks, and I've got to cop it. So let's talk about the Hall of Fame, Tredders. I got a little thought on the legend that'll be inducted, the 29th legend that will be selected by the current membership of the Australian Football Hall of Fame. But first, given the pandemic restrictions that still exist around the country, do you think it's appropriate that perhaps we look at postponing the night and having a separate ceremony when it's allowed to be a bit more open and attended?
Yeah, I agree exactly what you're saying. I saw a tweet, and it was an article written, I think, by News Limited, the Herald Sun, and I said, why would you run the function? I got on Twitter before. I thought, don't worry, it doesn't happen often. So we're sitting there going, why would you run the function? It is the greatest celebration of someone's career. It is an amazing night. It is the best night in the Footy calendar, but why would you rush it? I then get a private message into my inbox going, just to let you know, these people have known since February. We want to get it out there so they can actually tell people. And I can tell you guys right now that the AFL has written to Hall of Fame members and said that there will be a function once restrictions are lifted. So we will get it. It's just so these people don't have to sit there for another 8 months' time and go, oh, no, it's not me, I'm not sure.
Why do we always have the same conversation when the Legends thing comes up too? It's always, is Ablett ready? Is Carey ready? And if it's one thing we've learned, those selecting the Legends are looking at a different time in football. They're looking at the names that have been elevated over the decades. So, I think you'd be far better if you're trying to guess who the legend will be, looking at the types of coaches we've seen over the journey, A Tommy Hafey, for example, 4-time premiership coach, Richmond immortal, would have to be an enormously strong contender to be legends. Maybe a John Kennedy Sr. or David Parkin. There's a guy who's won as a player. He's won multiple premierships as a coach. I think that's more the direction that the selectors go. I'm just having a guess. Nobody from AFL House, has said anything, of course, but that's where I would be heading. Have you got any thoughts, Sammy, on someone you might want to say? Let's go around the room, just select someone, a name you think might be worth going in.
I mean, I completely understand with what you're saying, Seb, and the examples that you give are great ones. But I probably fall into the basket of a lot of other people who think about, when you think about football, you automatically think about players. That's just the way that we go. And coaches get elevated to, immortal status as they should, and as the likes of Lee Matthews and Alistair Clarkson inevitably will be throughout the modern footy. But I always think Carey, I always think Ablett, because they're the lists that you're doing at the pub late in the Saturday night, Sam, about the best players you've ever seen or the best players that you've heard about. I would love to see Wayne Carey, a guy that I've worked with as well, a guy who's given a lot back to the game since he's retired, go in there. But I can understand that there are a lot of other people, and their time will probably come.
Treaders,
I agree with those sentiments. Yeah, well, I think that for me, the key bit is, I always think the modern, and only a few years ago, Kevin Sheedy was put in South Australia when you had it, Barry Robin was put in. So those people are top of your mind. For me, who's been Port Adelaide my whole life, and I look and go, Barry Robin's career was amazing. Russell Ebert sits quite comfortably alongside him as arguably South Australia's greatest ever. He's won 4 Magarey medals, played state footy when it was at its peak, and as record games for the Port Adelaide Footy Club. So for me, I would much rather see an Ebert-type person. As you mentioned those names before, Hafey, Kennedy Sr., any of those types of players before the modern day. And I get it. I was lucky enough to be put in as a member 3 years after I played. It's now gone to 5 years. Yeah. And I think it's easy to see. If you have a look through the 5 people who are up for eligibility this year, there's some straight-ins that you pretty much guess. And I don't know if it's 100%, but I'd be sitting there going, well, they'd be stiff if they're not put in straight away. So I think it's always important to remember yesteryear. And I think that's what the AFL committee who picks this has done very, very well, and hasn't bowed to public pressure or scrutiny or this person should be. And as we said, they've known since February. So the sooner it comes out, they'll probably have a sigh of relief and they can finally celebrate, even though it'll be with their families in isolation.
Let's move on to the social club. Every week we induct a person from the football community for their social media work that has caught our eye during the week. And this week, it's none other than the big man, 6'8" St Kilda ruckman. Ruckman, they're usually tough as nails, up for anything. Nothing scares them. Take a look at Rowan Marshall having a COVID-19 test. There you go. Just the swab going pretty deep there. I don't blame Rowan for recoiling a little bit.
Yeah,
hey, I'm not hanging on him, boys. Mate, if that was, I'm not lining up for that test if I can. I'll be avoiding it as long as I can.
Yeah, I'm exactly with you. It just looks like you just feel like crying when you. Also, just a late social club piece, if I can. Mm-hmm. Can we put in, or can I just decide to designate the parakeets in the background with Treaders is obviously in the last couple of weeks and is just going
Avery there, Treaders. What's going on?
I thought I was getting away with it when they're talking, boys. So stay there. I'll get them out for you.
It is a virtual aviary. I've been sitting here.
Mate, we've got 2 dogs, 2 cats, birds. Oh, he's not going to jump on my finger either. Come on.
2 birds, 2 dogs. Are you Noah, Treaders? Are you building an ark over there in South Australia?
Yeah, we are. We're not far from the beach here in Adelaide, but we won't take all 5 kids if it all comes in. But say hello to Malibu, mate.
Oh,
what that kind of bird is Malibu?
Oh,
green cheek conure.
A what?
A green cheek conure.
So Seb,
another one here too.
I was joking, but he's actually an ornithologist. I
don't even know what that means. Oh, there he goes.
Hang on. Oh, good. I'm glad he came back. I thought I heard a crunch under your left foot there, Trent.
Oh, the dogs are barking now, boys.
Sorry for Malibu for a second.
This is unbelievable.
It's all happening. Look at the zoo.
My goodness.
He's not happy.
Have a look at little schnauzer, is he?
He knows I'm talking to a Carlton and a Bombers supporter. That's why.
Well,
Not only does he dress like Don Johnson, Seb, but he's got the house to boot with that.
Yes.
At least I don't have hair like Don Johnson.
Hey, Warren Tredrea, a.k.a. Dr. Doolittle, thank you for your time today.
No. Gonna go jump on the ark.
That's Chief Footy Reporter of the Nine Network. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Seb, but Treaders will be equally glad he got a shot of the Q5 out the back as well.
Oh, yes.
Hey, they were happy for the plug too. They really appreciated the airtime.
Down there in Hawthorne, Adelaide, not far from Scotch College. This has been Talk of the Town. We'll see you next week.